First thing that you have to do, you grab your A-line pattern paper. I have my front and back A-line pattern paper. And I also have a different paper right here where we are going to trace the front neckline and the back neckline so that we can draw our Peter Pan collar. On my YouTube, I have shown how to draw your Peter Pan collar, but for today, I will still go ahead and show you guys how to draw your own Peter Pan collar. Before I will put them together, I will place my measuring tape from the very edge of this pattern paper. I'm going to measure inside 1 inch or 2.5 centimeters so that I will have a guideline when I start putting everything together. So I have measured inside 1 inch or 2.5 centimeters. That is just a guideline. This does not include the collar. This is just the guideline so that I know that the line is straight when I'm going to start putting them together. So what I'm going to do, I will place my measuring tape like this. This is the armhole side of my front pattern. I will place my measuring tape. I will measure inside 1 centimeter. I have measured the 1 centimeter inside. This is the front neckline and this is the back neckline, and these are the bow shoulder. So you put the bow shoulder together like this. You can see the way I put it together, and you just go ahead and pick your back pattern and you twist the shoulder to that 1 centimeter that you measure. Make sure that the bow shoulder from here are equal. So what you are going to do, you can take your tape and you tape them together. Once you have taped that together, what you are going to do, just go ahead and trace the front neckline and the back neckline together. I have traced it out. This is how it is, and I also go ahead and give it a straight line at the center back. What you are going to do, you remove your pattern paper and you just go ahead and take your armhole curve to curve it out. So I have curved it out. This is the back, this is the front. So what I'm going to do, I am going to place my measuring tape from right here. I'm going to measure 5.5 centimeter or 2.25 inch. So you place your measuring tape from this very mark. You measure down 5.5 centimeter or 2.25 inch. You go ahead and measure it all around the neckline. So I have measured it all around. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take my armhole curve and curve it out gently. I have used my armhole curve to curve it out. The next thing that you have to do, you place your measuring tape like this. This is the bottom. So we are going to measure inside 1 inch or 2.5 centimeter right here. What you are going to do, you take your armhole curve, you're going to curve it out. So you curve it out like this. I have curved it out. This is how it is right now. For the back, you can either leave it like this or you just place your measuring tape, just measure inside 1 centimeter and take your armhole curve just to curve it out just a little bit like this, from here to there like this. You just curve it out just a little bit like that. Depends on how you want your collar to look. You can either make it like this and you just curve the bottom out, or you can decide to just leave it a fork corner at the edge of the pattern paper. So what I'm going to do, I am going to go ahead and cut it out. So I'm not going to curve it out like this. I'm just going to leave it a fork corner for the center back. I have cut out my pattern paper. This is how it is, and this is my May pattern paper, both front and back. So for my main pattern paper, from the bottom edge, I measure inside 5 inch or 13 centimeter, and I also repeat the same process with the back, 5 inch or 13 centimeter. I'm going to take my scissors and cut that out, and I also repeat the same thing for the back. I have pinned my front and back pattern paper on my fabric, and I've also pinned my collar on my fabric, and I've added seam allowance all around. So what I'm going to do, I am going to take my scissors and start cutting them out. So when you pin your front pattern paper on your fabric, make sure your front pattern paper is unfolded, and for the back you're cutting 2 pieces. For the collar, you are going to cut 4 pieces, both the main fabric and the lining. So I will go ahead and start cutting out my fabric out. First thing that you have to do, you take your front fabric. This is the front of my fabric, this is the back of my fabric, and you take the back fabric. This is the front of my fabric and this is the back. Make sure that both front fabric are facing each other. You go ahead and put the shoulder seam together, and you also take the second pieces, put the both shoulder seam together, stitch it with 1 centimeter seam allowance. Depends on the seam allowance that you add on your fabric. Once you have done that, you also repeat the same process with your lining. You put the both shoulder seam together. Once you have done pinning, take it to your sewing machine, stitch the shoulder seam with 1 centimeter seam allowance. Once you have done that, you take your collar. So I have pinned my collar together. Make sure that both front fabric are facing each other. Go ahead and pin it all around the collar. This is the bottom edge of the collar. Once you have done pinning, take it to your sewing machine, stitch it with 1 centimeter seam allowance, and you stitch the center back. This will be the center back of your collar. And you also repeat the same process with the second one. Once you have done stitching, snip around the curved edge, turn it inside out and give it a good press. And you take your sleeve. This is my sleeve right here. I have pinned the bottom edge, and I make sure that both front fabric are facing each other. I will take it to my sewing machine, stitch it with 1 centimeter seam allowance. Once I am done stitching, I will turn it inside out and give it a good press, and I will stitch the gather stitch thread at the top edge of my fabric. So go ahead and stitch them together. I have stitched the shoulder seam of my dress, and I've also stitched the collar, and I've stitched my sleeve, and I stitched a gather stitch thread on my sleeve. This is how it is. I've also stitched the lining. So this is the front of my top dress, and this is the mid part of my top dress. What I'm going to do, I'm going to place my measuring tape at the center back. I'm going to measure inside 3 centimeters. That is what I add for my buttonhole. And I'll also come down to the second side. I'll measure inside 3 centimeters. That is for my buttonhole. So what I'm going to do, I will pick my collar. I'll place it like this. Instead of me placing the main fabric, I want the lining to be showing. So I'm going to place it like this and pin it around the neckline. And I'll also place the second one and pin it around the neckline. I have pinned my collar all around. This is how it is right now. Before you take it to your sewing machine and top stitch, we are going to gather our sleeve around the both armhole. So what you are going to do, this is my measuring tape because we have to measure inside. So you just place your measuring tape like this. You measure down 4 centimeters or 1.5 inches right here. And you also repeat the same process on the back armhole. You place your measuring tape like this, 4 centimeters or 1.5 inches. And you also repeat the same process with the other armhole. Once you have done that, the next thing that you have to do, you're going to put your both sleeve together like this. You can see the way I put it together. You take your scissors, you notch the mid part of your sleeve. Once you have notched the mid part, so this is how it is. The next thing that you have to do, this is the shoulder seam of your dress. Put them together, make sure that they are matched, and you secure that with a pin. And then you pick the end of your sleeve. So this is where we mark 4 centimeters or 1.5 inches. So you push it out and you secure that with a pin, and you come down to this other side. You repeat the same process. Once you have pinned your sleeve together, this is how it is. This is what you are going to gather. Go ahead and start pulling your gather stitch thread. Once you pull them all the way down, the next thing that you have to do is just go ahead and pin your sleeve around the armhole. I have pinned the both sleeve together. This is how it is. The next thing that I'm going to do, I am going to take it to my sewing machine and give it a top stitch all around. When I'm stitching, it's not up to my seam allowance. When I place my lining on top of it, then I will stitch my seam allowance. And I will also repeat the same process with the collar. So when I'm stitching, it's not up to my seam allowance. When I place my lining on top of it, before I will stitch my seam allowance. Go ahead and stitch your sleeve and your collar together. For the sleeve, once you stitch it together, remember to remove your gather stitch thread. I have stitched around the neckline, so I've stitched the collar together, and I've also stitched my sleeve. This is how it looks. I remove the gather stitch thread. Before we place our lining on top of it and top stitch, what you are going to do, you can see my collar is very close to the armhole. Fold it inside like this, and you can see the same thing with the neckline. Fold your sleeve inside like this and use a pin to secure that. And you also repeat the same process on this other side. Fold it inside like this. Fold your sleeve and use a pin to secure that. Once you have done that, the next thing that you have to do, you are going to put your lining on top of it and top stitch. So I'll place my lining on top of it. Both front fabric are facing each other. So what you are going to do, you are going to pin around the neckline and you are going to pin around the both armhole. So take your pin around the both armhole and neckline, and also pin the center back, because the center back I'm going to attach a buttonhole for my dress. So I will pin the center back together, and I will pin the both armhole and neckline. I will take it to my sewing machine, stitch the center back with 1 centimeter seam allowance, the neckline 1 centimeter seam allowance, the both armhole 1 centimeter seam allowance. Depends on the seam allowance that you add on your fabric. You go ahead and stitch them together. Once you have done that, take your scissors, snip around the neckline, and also do the same thing with the armhole. Once you have snipped around the both neckline and the armhole, what you are going to do, turn your dress inside out, take it to your ironing board and give it a nice good press. Have stitched it together. This is how it is. I turn it inside. I'll give it a good press. This is how it look once you have done that. You can see my sleeve how it is. Make sure you press it very nice. And this is the center back. This is how it look once you have done that. The next thing that you have to do, we are going to stitch the side seam of our dress. All you have to do, you pick your made fabric and you pick your back fabric. So this is the made fabric. Put them together. Make sure that both lining will be facing each other. Both made fabric will be facing each other. What you are going to do, take your dress to your sewing machine. You go ahead and stitch the side seam together, and you also repeat the same process with the other side of your dress. Both made fabric together, both lining together. Take it to your sewing machine, stitch the side seam together. Once you have done stitching, take it to your overlocker, overlock the raw edges, or use zigzag to overlock the raw edges. Go ahead and stitch the both side seam of your dress together. I have stitched the both side seam of the dress together. This is how it look once you have done that. I use a pin to secure it. From here to here is 2 centimeters. When we cut our fabric, I add 3 centimeters on my pattern paper. So I stitch it with 1 centimeter, then I'm left with 2 centimeters. So what you're going to do, you come to the bottom edge. You're going to measure that 2 centimeters inside your dress. Place your measuring tape at the bottom edge. You measure inside. 2 centimeters is right here. And you come down here. You also repeat the same process. 2 centimeters is right there. So what you are going to do, you are going to put them together. Both lining and your made fabric, you just pick them like this. You put them together. So I will place it like this. And I will secure that with a pin. So what I'm going to do, I am going to give it a top stitch from here to about 1 inch or 2.5 centimeters. I'm going to secure that with a pin before I will gather my fabric at the bottom edge of my dress. I have given it a top stitch. This is how it is once you have given it a top stitch. The next thing that you have to do, you just put the both side seam of your dress together, both lining and made fabric together. I will secure this with a pin, and then I will come down to this side, both fabric and lining together, secure that with a pin. Once you have done that, you are going to gather your fabric at the bottom edge of your dress making. So what we are going to do, this is the side seam. I'll put the both side seam together and I will pin that in place. You can see that I'm pinning the lining and the made fabric together, and I will come down to this side, put the side seam together and pin it in place. And I am going to gather my fabric around the bottom edge of my dress making. So go ahead and gather it all around. Once you have done that, take it to your sewing machine and top stitch. I have stitched the bottom edge. This is how it is, and I take it to my overlocker. I overlock all the raw edges. The next thing that you have to do, you just push the seam towards the made fabric and you top stitch it all around. and you also use that opportunity to hem your dress all around. That means you are hemming your ruffle fabric at the bottom edge of your dress. So this is the final look of my dressmaking, and this is how the front will look once you have done making your own dress. You can see that. And the back, this is how the back will look once you have done making your own dress. All you have to do is stitch your buttonhole at the center back and use hand stitch to stitch your buttons. And this is how it will look at the bottom edge. Thank you all so much for watching. Remember to subscribe, thumbs up on this video, comment down below if you have any question. If my tutorial is helpful, thumbs up, thumbs up. Subscription is free, and you all should have a wonderful day. Bye for now.